not put my face on social media in probably 2 to 3 years, but I used to have a TikTok account that had almost 80,000 followers, and I was getting paid, and they did not like my content, so they banned my account and took my money, and I stopped making videos. But a lot has changed in my life in the last couple months, and so I wanted to make this video. I'm 47 now, but this is my story. I always tell people that I was dealt the crappy parent hand. Both my parents are just really bad people. They're just really not good people. And I feel like no matter what your parents told you or how you were raised, you still have a purpose. And so that's why I'm going to share this story with you guys. My mom was born in 1955 in Germany during the Vietnam War. My grandpa was in the Army, and he and his wife, I don't believe they could have children. So they adopted 3 unrelated little German kids and brought them back to the States. They settled in Hawaii for a while, and my mom's adopted mom, Mary Kate, who I'm named after, committed suicide when she was 15. So they moved back to Tennessee, and my mom met my dad. She was 16, he was 14. And because they were so young, their parents met, and then their parents got married. So my mom's dad married my dad's mom. And when I was young, I thought that was incestual, and I would not tell people because I didn't understand how it worked. But I just ended up with one set of grandparents. My grandpa was widowed already, and my dad's mom was already divorced. So they got together, and now my mom's stepmom is also her mother-in-law. They hated each other. And I think because of that, my grandma just didn't really like me. I'm an only child, and I looked a lot like my mom. And I think she fought the urge to just not like me at all, but I was also her son's daughter, so she didn't have a choice. But anyways, they did. They hated each other. They had physical altercations. And I can remember my grandma not being very nice to me when I was little, but she wasn't mean. She just wasn't that loving old lady like a lot of grandmas are. But fast forward to, let's see, I was about, when we moved from Tennessee, my parents moved from Tennessee to Georgia, to Atlanta, when I was 2, to try to start over, get away from the family and start over. They're still married, and my mom started working for General Wholesale, which is still around. It's a big beer or alcohol distributor company, something like that. And one of her friends was having sex with a man that worked there for money. And my mom said, can I get in on that? It's a true romantic story. Well, so she immediately started cheating on my dad, and so he left and pretty much never looked back. I think I saw my dad like maybe 5 or 6 times the entire time I was growing up. So we'll just refer to the man at the beer company as my stepdad. They were together from the time I was 2. They're still together now. But when I was about 8 years old, my mom got super excited because she was going to see him on a Saturday. We did not see him on the weekends. He did not spend the night at our house, and we did not go to his house. But I'm 8 years old. That's just my life at that point, and I don't know any different. But she's super excited about seeing him on a Saturday for the first time ever. So we wake up and go to her friend's house. We lived on Claremont Road, and her friend was on Covington Highway, which is about 30 minutes away. And this is during the time where Spaghetti Junction was being built in Atlanta. And so we're over there, and she decides that I guess she's going to get really, really drunk because she's so excited that she's going to see him on a Saturday. I remember at one point she picked me up, and we fell behind the TV stand. And even at like 8 years old, I'm like, something ain't right. But anyways, it's time for us to go home now because I guess he's gonna be there. And she's wasted, she can't drive, so she lets her friend drive her car back to our house. From what I understand, she did not have a license and had never driven before, but we had to get home, so my mom puts me in the front seat and she passes out in the back seat while her friend is driving. At this time, let's see, if I'm 8, this is probably 86, 85, 86. And the car only had like a lap belt. It didn't have shoulder belts in the car. So we get closer to my house, and I remember hitting like every construction cone, every construction device on the way there. There's glass everywhere. My face is bloody. We get to my street and turn in on my street. My house was the second one from the street, and she hits the telephone pole. My face goes in the dash. That's where the scar comes from. She backs up, and the car, these old cars, didn't have power steering, so she tries to turn it to not hit the telephone pole, but she hits it again. My face goes in the dash again. And at this point, I can see my house, so I jump out of the car and I run to the front door. Well, my stepdad is in the doorway, and he's just like, what is going on? I have blood just dripping from my face. And he is infuriated with my mom. I don't even remember if she's out of the car at this point because she was passed out in the back seat. But he cleans my face up, goes to the Eckerd across the street and gets butterfly bandage and, bandages my face all up, and he leaves. And I remember my mom just going to her room and passing out. I never went to the hospital, never got any stitches or anything. But, there's that. And then I feel like one day when I was like 12 years old, my mom was in a really, really foul mood, and like always. And I remember asking her, what is wrong with you? And she's like, you wanna know what's wrong? You wanna know what's wrong? He's married. And I'm so young, I'm like, married not to you? Like, so confused. But I grew up with her telling me things like I was not an accident, I was a mistake. She was super abusive. She used to drag me around the house by my hair. She would spit on me, call me horrible, horrible names. And by the time I was 13, I remember her telling me that she thought I had ice running through my veins because I had no emotions. But I remember just never feeling like she loved me. And so I started having sex by the time I was like 14. She was never around. I guess my stepdad's wife, they got divorced, and she moved away when I was like 15. So from that moment on, my mom was never home. She was at his house, no supervision. I'm having parties, I'm having sex, I'm smoking weed, I'm doing ecstasy, whatever I could do, whatever you do with no supervision, we'll just say that. But so fast forward to I'm 17, right before my 18th birthday, I get a call from the VA, and the lady tells me that my grandpa, who had passed in 95, left me $28,000, and I will get it after I turn 18. I used that money to move out because my mom was super abusive and just, she didn't seem to care about me very much. So I wanted to leave and get out. So I go get my first apartment. I tell her I'm moving out. And I think I still had like 2 weeks until I was supposed to move out. That made her so mad that she said, well, get the F out then. And she kicked me out. I remember I had to stay in a hotel for a couple days because I had nowhere else to go. And again, I'm like eating pills, drinking, all kind of stuff. I meet my daughter's father in 96, I think, right before I graduate high school and get that money. And so of course he helps me spend all of that money. But before I spent it all, my mom drove me to the bank and made me get her $3,000 out because she said, that's my effing dad. But he didn't leave her anything but a burial plot, and so made her mad, and she made me give her $3,000. So I move out. Before I moved out, I ended up pregnant by him. And I remember when I told her, because he was black, she was super racist. I don't want no N-word baby in my family. So she pays for my abortion, and she takes me to her doctor, who she had gotten several abortions at. And that was that. I ended up getting pregnant again, probably 6 months later. And I told him, stay, go, whatever you want to do, but I'm going to keep this baby. So I go get on Medicaid, and I get my first doctor's appointment, and the doctor tells me, well, it took me a minute, but I found them. And I'm like, And he said, yeah, it's twins. And so I tell him that it's twins, and we tell his mom and his sister. I think I told my mom. And right before my first trimester is up and it's too late to get an abortion, I come home from work one day, and he's got all of our bills just sprawled out on the bed. And he says, if you have these babies, I will leave you. I did not have the abortion to keep him. I had the abortion so I would not have 2 kids all by myself at the age of 19. So I think I told his mom and his sister that I had a miscarriage. I was too ashamed to admit that I had an abortion. And we ended up breaking up. We had 2 roommates at the time, and I remember I told him, people that are in a relationship don't have roommates, and so we need to get our own apartment. And so I go get us a really expensive apartment for, $19.98. And 3 days before we're supposed to move out, he tells me, I'm not moving with you. I'm going to go live with them. I'm talking about his roommates, our roommates. And so I'm super, super sad and depressed, and my friends know that, and so they're like, come over, and they force me to go out. So this is 1998, May of 1998, and we go to Buckhead. That weekend, famous volleyball player Gabrielle Reese is in town, and so they have all of the streets shut off, filled with sand. So pretty much everybody's outside instead of being in the clubs. The Source magazine from all those years ago is there. They have this big, huge, van truck thing, and they're giving out Mountain Dews. And this guy approaches me, and he's trying to get my number. And I am so jaded by guys at this time that I'm like, I'm not even feeling your species right now, dude. Leave me alone. He is super persistent, and he's like, what do I got to do to get your number? What do I got to do to get your number? And so I was 19. I couldn't get into any of the clubs. And so I'm like, give me a Mountain Dew. The Source van was giving out Mountain Dews. So he goes, and I guess they're out. He comes back, and he's like, they don't have any more. And what else can I do to get your number? And I'm like, they had all these dudes in Buckhead at the time that would sell roses, single roses. And so I'm like, give me a rose. So he comes back with 2 of them, and he's like, no, can I have your number? Well, this is the days of pagers. And so I said, I'll give you my number, but I ain't got no pen. You got to remember it. He remembers it, ends up paging me and paging me and paging me and paging me and paging me until I get so annoyed that I call him back. And I remember telling him, you are the most persistent mofo I have ever met in my life. And he goes, you called me back, didn't you? So we end up talking on the phone all night long, trading stories about how he had been through all this stuff with his son's mom, and he had a 2-year-old at the time, and I'm telling him about all the things that I went through with my ex. And so we bond, and we really start to like each other, and I find out I'm pregnant. not by him because we haven't done anything. And it was my ex's baby. And I was super unhappy about being pregnant with him. I was finally starting to get over him, and now I'm trapped. I'm not going to have another abortion. I'm not doing this. So I tell him, I'm like, let me go do this with this dude. I guess I'm gonna have this baby and be with him. And he moved to Arizona for like 3 years. And so I end up getting back with my ex, and begrudgingly, I will tell you that. And I'm super unhappy that I'm pregnant, but this is what we're doing. So he proposes, probably like my second doctor's appointment. I say yes. It was the stupidest proposal in the world, but I'm like, yeah, I guess this is what we're doing. So I have my daughter, and I remember when they put her in my arms, it was, I remember thinking to myself, it's not about you anymore, Katie. So fast forward, and we split up when she's like 3 years old. But before we split up, the guy from Buckhead sends me an email, and it goes to my Sky pager. And I remember it says, you know, if your name is Katie and you had a baby by a guy named blah, 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 and you know somebody in Phoenix, call me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's my so-and-so, you know, my dude. And so we, you know, start talking again. My daughter's father finds the phone bill from long distance phone calls in Arizona, and he's, you know, he's super mad. And so we end up splitting up. Well, dude moves back here from Arizona, and now, you know, we're kicking it. So fast forward, we're so young when we got together that we would have time periods where we would break up and just go do our, you know, something else, be with somebody else, date somebody else, whatever. But whenever we would get back together, it would never be anything bad. It would just be, you know, better timing. We took a break from 2012 to 2015, and when we got back together, I knew that he had something going on in his phone. I wouldn't even be paying attention to his code or anything, but it would be different from the day before. And this is coming from somebody that couldn't even like remember stupid little things. And I'm like, dude, how in the world are you remembering a new code every day? And I would tell him, I know what dirt looks like, and you're super sus, dude. Like, I don't know what you got going on that phone, but I'm not stupid. And he would deny it. He never changed his behavior, and he never fessed up with anything. So fast forward 2017, my daughter graduated from high school, and we're living together. We have been for 2 years, and I know that something is in that phone. And so laying in the bed one night, and I said, God, if you're real, I want to know the truth. I can't deal with this anymore. I'm a grown woman, and I know it's going to hurt, but I want to know the truth. I cannot deal with this anymore. And I went to sleep. And in my mind, when I said that to God, I remember thinking, you know, if anything, he would bring the girl forward, and she'd be like, oh, you know, I'm messing with your man or whatever. But I wake up the next morning, and I realized that I had a dream, and he gave me the code to his phone. And I'm like, oh my God, I asked for this. Like, what? So the next night, it happens, whatever in the dream, it played out exactly the way it did in the dream. The next night, we're sitting on the couch. He had a corporate position at his job where he had his laptop out on this little TV tray every night. He would look at reports and, you know, see how, his little status at work was doing or whatever. And in the dream, that's exactly what happened. He pulls out his phone and he puts the code in. in the dream, I saw 1504, and the next night, it happened exactly like that. And when I looked over at the phone, he put in 1804. So I realized I either saw it wrong or God wanted me to see that I paid attention, and like it was the 5 and the 8 are right next to each other. So now I'm like, oh my God, I got to get in this phone. So I'm not proud of this, but that was a Saturday. The next day was a Sunday, and we were both off work. We both work retail, so sometimes I would work on Sundays, but this Sunday I was off. And he was a heavy drinker. Sometimes I would drink with him, but I've always been a smoker. I smoked a lot of weed. Mom was a huge alcoholic, and I felt like I had this disdain for alcohol. So I just smoked weed instead. And I started when I was 14. So that was what I did. And but this Sunday, I decided to get him really drunk, so that way he would sleep while I got in the phone. And so that's what I did. I drank a little bit with him. He probably thought I drank way more than I did, but I got him really drunk. And when he went to sleep, I remember laying in the bed and I said, okay, God, if you want me to get in this phone, don't let him wake up. So I crawl from my side of the bed over to his side of the bed, and I get his phone. I don't want him to wake up from the light, so I put this blanket over my head. I put the code in, and bam, there's the phone. It's open, and I'm like shaking, and I don't know what to do. But I immediately go to his text messages, and the very first text message I saw was horrible. He had a friend that he had, since high school or like junior high, whatever, that was pimping girls out. And I knew that, but his friend was doing it. He didn't have anything to do with it. A lot of his friends were drug dealers, in and out of jail, never really held a real job, a bunch of scam artists, whatever. But this friend, I knew that he was pimping girls, and my ex used to get on to me for smoking weed, and the message that he sent to this dude that night from the bathroom, where he would text he would be in the bathroom for a long time. I'll never forget it. It said, send me pictures because I got people that are willing to pay, bruh. And I jerked the phone out the wall. I drove up the street for a good 45 minutes, and I went through the phone. I found at least 5 to 6 different conversations in his text messages that would have individually broken my heart. And like I said, my daughter had just graduated high school, so I remember when I left the house that night, her light was on. So I called her, and she knew that I thought something was going on in his phone. And so when I called her, I said, I'm not in the house. I'm actually up the street. I've got his phone, and it's really bad. I'm going to come back to the house, and I need you to, she would stay up late and listen to music and dance around in her room so she wouldn't wake us up. But she had graduated from high school and she wasn't working yet, so she would stay up all night. And so I told her, I said, I need you to put your headphones on. I need you to turn them up really loud, and I need you to stay in your room. You've never seen this side of me before, and I don't want you to. So she did just that, and I came home and I woke him up. I was probably smacking him and calling him all kinds of names. And I remember, because he was so drunk when he went to sleep, he was really out of it. I could tell when I woke him up, his eyes were all red. He had no idea what was going on. But as soon as I put that phone in his face, he started reaching for it. I said, nope, you can't have it. I got you now. And so it was really bad. I put my hands on him a lot, and he started to engage back, and I told him, don't do it. Don't do it. It will not go well. I grew up in an extremely violent setting, and I don't back down from a fight. And he knew that. So he didn't test me. He didn't try it. But I ended up staying with him for 2 more years, because up until that point, he had never done anything to disrespect me. He never even called me out of my name. And he had been a really good provider, and he was remorseful. He felt so bad. I had to take like 2 weeks off of work. My health went to crap. I ended up in the hospital for a little bit. It was really bad. And so, like I said, I stayed with him for about 2 years, and we just kept going. Now for Christmases, he's buying me all this stuff. He's doing all this stuff, whatever. And fast forward, like I said, 2 years, and my daughter is like 20 at this point. And out of nowhere, one morning, she tells me, "Mom, I got the code to his phone." And I said, "I didn't ask you for that." And she said, "I know, but I was standing behind him the other day when he put his code in, and it seemed really extra. And so I memorized it, and I have it written down. If you want it, I will let you have it." And I said, "Let me sleep on it." Because although God had answered my prayers, I still wasn't going to him. I still had not made the connection that God was calling me and trying to get my attention. I had not made that connection yet. And I was into a bunch of new age crap, like this ridiculous monstrosity on my neck. So I'm doing new moon rituals and full moon rituals constantly with the crystals and the Buddhas and the Ganeshas and the bleh, trying to find happiness. And so in my mind, all of those entities or whatever, they were in addition to God, not in lieu of God. So anyways, I tell her the next day, I'm like, "Give me the code." And she was right. She had it written down. It was one of those, swipe, make the little arrow thing codes. And it was super, super extra. And so she brings me this little piece of paper, and it's got the arrows and like which numbers it was on and everything. So same thing happened. I wait until he goes to sleep, get the phone, go up the street. And it's not as bad as the first time, but now I realize he's got an Instagram I don't know about. "Mr. I don't have social media. I don't answer text messages. I'm sorry. I don't have my notifications on." All these raggedy excuses. And I get the phone, and I see that, remember I told you he moved to Arizona for 3 years back in 98 or whenever that was when we met. And so I realized there's a number, and there's a 602 number, which is Arizona, Vegas, or something, I don't know. And it's like 2 weeks worth of conversation, but there's no name. And whoever this is like, "You're off this weekend, aren't you? And what are you going to do for your birthday?" Because this is in October, and his birthday was in October. And so, I'm like, well, if it's midnight here, then that means that it's like 9 o'clock there. So I text the number, and I'm like, "You up?" She responds immediately. And I said, "Call me." And she says, "See, this is why you irritate me. Why do I have to call you?" and all that. So I just dialed the number, and she's like, "Hello." And I said, "Does he irritate you because he's halfway across the country with his girlfriend of 20 years? She has no knowledge of me or my daughter, who he refers to as his daughter to everyone in our lives, because he has been around since she was 3. And I met him when I was pregnant with her and didn't know it. And so here I am thinking he is eventually going to marry me, and we're going to, live happily ever after. And he's still got all of this going on. Mind you, in the text messages, she's asking him, "Are you going to still come out here for your birthday?" So I busted up those plans real nice. And I talked to her on the phone for, I don't know, long enough to where I was like, "You know what? I'm going back home." And at the time, like I said, I was smoking a lot of weed. So I'm just talking to her on the phone while I'm rolling up, in the garage. And he must wake up. He must have woken up in the middle of all this and realizes that I'm not in the bed. And if I'm not in the bed, I was probably going to be smoking. So he comes into the garage, and he sees me on the phone, but he doesn't realize it's his phone, not mine. So when he comes in, he's like, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, nothing, just talking to Holly. And he's like, eyes get all big. And I'm like, here, talk to your friend. And so I give the phone to him and he immediately hangs it up. I'm like, why would you hang it up? Talk to your friend, talk to your friend. And so anyways, I tried super, super hard to get out of this relationship, and I kept applying for apartments and I couldn't get accepted. I wouldn't get accepted. Something would happen to where I could not get an apartment to get away from this dude. And I can't take it anymore. And so I'm like, I can't do this. I finally get accepted for an apartment. I choose to move out. So I move out 2 weeks before the COVID shutdown in 2020. And now I don't have a job. So I'm like, great. I have $1,200 in rent to pay and a daughter to support all on my own, and now I don't have a job. But the unemployment comes in like quick, fast, and in a hurry, and everything's cool. So we split up, and we stayed in contact, but I'm still doing my new age nonsense. And at some point after we go back to work in 2021, I believe, one of my coworkers' clients, I cut hair, and one of the ladies that used to see my boss wanted to get a haircut, and she had texted my boss, and my boss just never responded. And so she comes in and she's like, you know what? I've seen you in here all these years of, getting my hair cut with your coworker. Can you just cut my hair? And I'm like, yeah. Well, this is right before the holidays, and she asked me, what are you doing for the holidays? And I say, I don't really have any plans. It's just me and my daughter. I don't speak to either one of my parents because they're not good people. So probably just go to Cracker Barrel or whatever with my daughter. And so I think she felt sorry for me. So she comes in a couple of days later with her mom, who is, older than her. So she's an elderly lady, and she's like, can your coworker cut my hair and while I talk to you in the back? Is that okay? And I say, yeah. So we go back there, and she says, can I pray for you? Now, I didn't believe or not believe, but I would never have said, no, you can't pray for me. So she prays for me. And I remember towards the end, I now know that she was speaking in tongues, but I didn't know what it was. I just knew that it was very powerful. And she invited me to her church. Now, this is the crazy part. Because I was so confused about what to do with my ex and the situation of why all this happened, just wanted answers, I had started consulting with psychics. And I had 3 of them tell me basically, and like so many so many steps that I should basically sell all of my stuff and move to Costa Rica. So I had started to make those arrangements. I had already made a reservation to stay at a hostel for like a week. And my plan was I was going to either put all my stuff in storage or, sell it or whatever. And I was just going to backpack through Costa Rica until I figured out which area I wanted to live in while I cut hair to make money, because I could take my scissors anywhere and provide for myself. So I look up on the website for this church, and I was not one of those people that wanted to wear a face diaper or get your government shots. And the website for this church said that it said, we do not believe in mandates, and basically we believe in consulting with the Holy Spirit for your bodily autonomy. And I was like, I might be able to go to this church because they're not going to make me wear a mask. They're not going to ask me for my stupid vaccine card. And so I start going to church. February 6th, 2022. And I was supposed to move to Costa Rica in March. So I go to this church, I think it was when I first started going, they were doing a series about the 9 gifts of the Holy Spirit. And as a new ager, that's all you're looking for is the supernatural. And they're talking about all of this stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, and I'm hooked. And so I went, my store that I worked at was right next to a Barnes and Noble. So I immediately go get the Bible, and I got a KJV, and I started trying to read it, and I didn't understand it. And by this time I had made a friend from TikTok in Wyoming, and she was Christian, and I tell her, like, I want to read this Bible, but it's so complicated, like I don't understand it. She said, I'm gonna send you one of my Bibles. So she sends me her NIV Bible, and I'm realizing when I go to church, like every time the pastor gets up there, he's always referring to stuff from this book. And I've always been kind of a nerd when it comes to like reading and researching and vocabulary and all of that. And in my mind, I'm like, if he's talking about this book every time he gets up there, I should probably read the book. It was like my textbook. That's how I saw it. And so I read the Bible in 3 months. And a lot of people will skim over Leviticus because it's like the rules and genealogy and all that stuff. But as soon as I'm like looking at the stuff about witchcraft and sorcery and all this stuff, and I'm like, what have I been doing? Oh my gosh, I've been consulting with psychics and mediums, and oh my gosh. So I immediately know that all of that stuff is not for me anymore. The tarot, the crystals, all this stuff. But I'm still with the Buddhas and all that stuff. I didn't know that that stuff was not good and opposite of God. And so it took me a while, but I go to church one Wednesday night, and I remember he said something about being saved, and I didn't know what that meant. And so I truly and honestly asked my pastor, I'm like, Pastor, how do I know if I'm saved? And he's like, oh my gosh, I didn't know you weren't saved. Mom, come on over here. We got to get Katie saved. So she says the prayer, I accept Jesus, and I remember telling my best friend, because I'm smoking weed this whole time. I'm chiefing, okay? But that's what I was doing when I was reading the Bible. And I remember telling my best friend, because she is a Christian and she smokes weed too, I said, I really don't feel like I'm supposed to be high as I take this walk with Jesus. And she's like, I get what you're saying, but I just don't think it's hurting anything. And I said, I hear what you're saying as well, but I really just don't think the two go together. So just remember, she said, I don't think it's hurting anything. That was her specific wording. So fast forward maybe a month, and her stepdad passes away from a heart attack, and go to his service. And because his service was on a Sunday, I missed my church service, and I had been going to church faithfully up until this point, and so I was super sad to miss my service. But after her stepdad's service, I had about an hour and a half drive home, and I said, you know what, I'm going to get on Facebook and I'm going to listen to the sermon that I missed today. When I tell y'all, in the service, he literally says to the entire church, several of you in here smoke pot because you don't think it's hurting anything, but the Lord wants to know if you'll let it go. And I'm like, oh my God. Oh my gosh. So I'm truly convicted now. And so that Wednesday, I think I just bought some or something like that. And we all know this stuff is not cheap. And I've never been strong enough to just throw it away. So I go to service on that Wednesday, and I tell Pastor, I'm like, Pastor, I'm one of the people. And he gives me a hug, and he kind of chuckles. He's like, it's okay, you know. You don't have to come to Jesus clean, but, you know, he'll clean you up. Basically like, okay, so now you know, I need you to quit. And so I told him, I said, I just bought some, so I'm going to finish it, and then I'll be done. And that was truly my plan. But this was in 2022. And so from that point, I had tried and tried and tried to quit smoking. I even tried to quit before COVID one time, and I went, I think it was almost 8 weeks, but I could not sleep without it. And I was maybe getting 2 to 3 hours of sleep a night for almost 8 weeks, and I felt like was literally going insane. I had gotten 3 complaints at work about my attitude in 1 week. They would leave my store for me being a jerk to them and go to the store closest to us where my area manager worked and tell her how this one girl at the other store had treated them. And so like I started smoking again because like it was affecting my job. And anyways, so I had tried and tried and tried and tried and tried and tried, and I just could never get past a couple days. And so then I did get probably, I think I got a week and a half sober, probably the year later after that. And my dog, I had a Maltese Yorkie, and he was fine one day, and 3 days later he was throwing up blood, and then he died. And so I got super sad, and I started smoking again. And this whole time, I mean, I'm feeling horrible. I'm still not telling anybody. I didn't tell my pastor that I was still smoking. Like, I'm still going to church, but I feel like a hypocrite, and I'm not reading the Bible as much. I'm not going to church as much. I'm just in my sin, basically. And so, I'd have people telling me like, it's okay, it's a plant, God made it. Yeah, well, he made poison ivy too, we don't smoke it. And the Bible literally says, be sober. And so I'm struggling. I would go back and forth with smoking the fake weed from the gas station to hemp cigarettes to just regular cigarettes. I mean, like, it was bad. I realized that even if I wasn't smoking weed, I wanted to be smoking something. So then I'm rationalizing it in my mind. If I smoke these hemp cigarettes and I'm not actually getting high, I'm just smoking, then I'll just quit from there. I had one of my clients sponsor me to go on a Trace Diaz retreat, and it was for 3 days, and I knew I couldn't smoke weed while I was on this Jesus retreat. So I was like, you know what, I'm gonna use this as rehab. And I go up there, I did not sleep the entire time. It was a great experience. I knew Jesus was real, but I got home and immediately, I didn't smoke weed, I don't think, but I went right back to the hemp cigarettes. And then of course that led back to weed. So that didn't do anything for me. But I struggled and I struggled and I struggled and I struggled. And now here we are, November 2025, and I'm still smoking weed, and I've been going to church for over 3 years and feel super convicted, but never strong enough to get past a couple days. The mental torment was unbearable. Whenever I would try to quit smoking, I'd wake up the first morning and the thoughts were just always smoke. You know, when I smoke, text the dude, you know, you can do it. You can go get it at 7:30 in the morning. I couldn't take it anymore. And I remember learning that Matthew 17:21 was in the KJV, but that had been taken out of several other versions of the Bible. And to me, that meant that it was super important. And the verse is exactly, howbeit this kind goeth not out, but by prayer and fasting. And I say, you know what? I'm going to do this. And it's going to suck, but I'm going to do it. So November 5th was a Wednesday, my off day. I always had a hard time trying to quit if I would keep postponing it, like, oh, but I'm off Wednesday, so I'll quit Thursday. Oh, well, I'm off Sunday, so I'll quit Monday. Oh, but then I'm off Wednesday again. Like, it was this constant battle, this constant roller coaster, and just going back and forth in my head about when I was going to quit. No, I can't do it then. I've got this day off. So I had my super gluttonous meal on a Wednesday night. I smoked myself into oblivion and made sure I smoked it all, because I told you I cannot throw it away. I'm going to end up digging it out of the trash or going to get more, because I feel like, oh my gosh, I didn't finish it, you know? So I finish it, I go to sleep. When I woke up Thursday morning on November 6th, It was horrible. I had anxiety, the thoughts, I'm having hot flashes, which I'm already 47, going through that fun stage in life. And so, I mean, literally it was unbearable. So I texted my guy, because usually he has grown children and they would be at home in the morning, and I could go over there before work, since I didn't have to be at work until 11 and I could get more, and I would do that. But I texted him at 7:30 that morning, and he just didn't respond until about 9:30, which would have been too late for me to go over there, get it, roll it up, smoke it, and go to work. And so when he texted back, I said, never mind, it was a moment of weakness, just ignore me. Thank you for not responding. But that Thursday and Friday and Saturday were literal hell. I would wake up and walk my dogs and then come in here into my prayer closet and just cry. Literally just lay on the floor and cry. I felt like a crackhead. I'm like, is this just weed? What is the problem? Like, I have always been strong and I have overcome so many things in my life. What is going on? And so, like I said, I made it through Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. I'm not eating and I'm not smoking. So all I have is time on my hands. And by Saturday morning, and I got to work, I was a solid mess. My eyes were puffy from crying, and I just felt like, oh my God, I don't know what to do. So I texted my pastor, because he's amazing, and he comes all the way from where he lives to get his hair cut by me. I have his phone number, I have his wife's phone number. Like, that's the type of church I go to. And so I texted him, and I was just completely honest with him, and I said, I finally quit smoking. I have not eaten since Wednesday. Remember, it's Saturday. I said, I've not eaten since Wednesday, and I am trying so hard to surrender, but this mental torment is unbearable. Is there going to be anybody at church tonight? And he said, yes, we'll be there at 6. I'll be praying. We'll be praying for you, and I'll see you soon. I love you. And so I get off work early, I go home and I walk my dogs, and I go to the church. It's him, his dad, his wife, and 2 of the other elders. And they prayed over me for about 10 minutes. You know, spirit of addiction, we command you to go in the name of Jesus. And I mean, like 10 minutes of solid prayer. And I felt different, a little bit different. And I had asked the Lord, I said, please just give me some sort of relief so I can keep fighting. Just please, please, I'm begging you, please. I don't want to do this anymore. And so I felt a little bit different when I left church that night. But when I woke up Sunday morning, he had completely delivered me from this addiction that I had had since I was 14 years old. And I think I just dropped to my knees and praised God. You're real, and I know that you're real. And I thank you so much for pulling me out of this pit. So I was just literally tending my own grave, smoking myself to death. Like, that's all I did. I remember I smoked a half ounce in 3 days before. Like, you can tell serious pot smokers that, and they'll be like, oh my God, that's a lot of weed, girl. Like, literally, it was all I was doing. I've been alone since my daughter moved out 4 years ago, and just have my dogs, and that's all I did. I would get off work and smoke, walk my dogs and smoke, and eat and smoke and go to sleep. Wake up and smoke and drink my coffee and smoke and smoke and smoke. That's all I was doing. And even when I'm doing it, I wouldn't want to be doing it that much. I would get enjoyment at first, but then it would give me anxiety and all that. So I finally felt free. And so I remember after they prayed over me, one of the ladies said, the Lord just showed me, Katie, that the devil has kept you in bondage with this for so long because he wants to heal the people in your chair. And I can't tell you how cool it is to know that no matter how far you ran and how deep you dig yourself into this pit of death and hell, he'll pull you out. He showed me he was real in 2017 when he gave me that code, but he waited for me to figure it out and to truly submit and surrender to him. So I said all of this to tell you, if you do not believe that God is real, call out to him. Be real and be genuine and tell him, reveal yourself to me, and he will. He doesn't want anybody in bondage. And if you are addicted to anything, I think it was Vlad Slavchuk or something like that that said it. If you're addicted to anything, you got company. There are a lot of spiritual forces around that the devil does not want to see you do well. And when you get deliverance, you know that there was something else going on inside that was controlling you. And the amount of freedom that I feel, I never knew that I could live life without smoking weed. It was literally the way that I lived. It was the only way that I got through the days. It was the only way that I was okay with the day. It was the only way I was okay with being alone. It was the only way that I was okay with being single. But because I had started having sex when I was 14, and I used that as a way to feel loved for a really long time. When you don't have affection as a kid, you look for it in all of the wrong places as an adult. I have been celibate now for 4 years. I had no problem putting that down. And I didn't listen to secular music anymore. I basically, the only thing I had left to let go of was the weed. And now I'm free. I don't want to smoke anymore. I'm productive. And instead of spending however much time I was smoking weed, I kicked the devil in the teeth, and all of that time I spend in the Word, memorizing this. And woke up one day before I had even finished the Bible or read this specific Psalm 107:20. He sent his word and healed them and delivered them from their destructions. So I just want people to know that, like, God is real. And if you don't believe, just call out to him. He will show you. He will show you what true freedom looks like. If you are a drinker, a smoker, you're looking at porn, you have a shopping addiction, if you're a control freak, if, like, the devil wants us in bondage, but God will set you free. And he's the only way. Jesus is real. And if you want to know, just call out to him. Be sincere, and he will answer you. And so that's my story. I'm not going to say that my life is perfect. And I know that I still have some deliverance issues. Like, I have a lot of trauma from my childhood. But when I ask God, just give me some relief so I can fight, please, so I can keep fighting. I broke my fast on day 11 because I felt like it was okay, you know, I'm good. But I have more deliverance through a church in Austell on December 13th, and then on the 14th, I'm driving to Florida to be baptized again, because I got baptized in April of 2022, and because I was so not serious about this journey and not serious about what he was calling me to do, which was to be sober, I left my baptism and went and got margaritas. So I'm doing it again. And that's my story. The condensed version anyway. But I just want you to know that God is real. Jesus is real. And if you do not want to live in bondage and you want to be set free, call on him. You might have to show him that you're serious and you mean it, but there are plenty of people that I've talked to that just told him one time, I'm truly addicted to this, Lord. Whatever it is, can you free me from it, please? And you'll wake up if it's your time, and he could literally deliver you in your sleep. That's what happened to me. So that's why I make this video, just to show you guys it's real. For the people that know me, they know. I had people calling me the #1 Chief Rocka. Okay. That's all I did was smoke the weed. I called it Mary Joanna. It was my crutch, my bestie, and now I will never go back to that life. And I'm only on day 24 now because it's in the middle of the daggum night. But I'll never go back to that life. What God and Jesus has for me is so much better than wasting my life slowly killing myself because I was coughing and just eating too much and sleeping too much. I was literally making up names for naps: napperoni and cheese, a snore d'oeuvre, an appetizer. It was a napperoncini. Literally my whole life was being lazy, eating, going to work, and pretending that I was happy. And now when I go to work, people notice something different about me. I'm not the same person that I used to be. And it's all glory to God. And I never thought I'd be this person, ever. But I will share my testimony with whoever will listen to me. And even if you don't want to listen, I will tell you about it anyway. Because if I'm cutting your hair, you're stuck in my chair. And I'm going to tell whoever will listen to me that God is real, Jesus is real, and if you want to be free, call out to him. He'll set you free. I hope this helps somebody.